My name is Marin Lockwood. I am 28 years old. I didn't plan on stepping into my own house that Thanksgiving. I told everyone, including myself, that I'd go straight to Alex's parents' place, eat politely, and pretend the year hadn't scraped me thin. But the porch light on West Ashley was left burning, and the front door, my front door, wasn't even locked. Warm air breathed out at me. Butter, sage, clinking plates, the light scrape of silverware on ceramic. I took one step inside and heard my name like a punchline. "She's a total loser," my mother said, clear and bright over the clatter. Laughter. The easy kind that means no one in the room is in danger, except the person they're laughing at. I didn't move. The hallway was just narrow enough to feel like a throat. From the kitchen, my dad's voice. "She struts around like she's this big-shot businesswoman. Let's be real. She's nothing without Alex." Then my aunt, like a chorus. "I bet she's in debt up to her ears. She just pretends to be successful." And my mother again, a public verdict in my private home. Honestly, the house should be Ava's. At least she has a child to raise. Marin's just playing pretend. Every word slotted into place like someone had pre-measured the cruelty. Something in me went quiet, the way a lake goes still before it freezes. I stepped through the dining room threshold. Forks froze midair. The room smelled like oranges and heat, and a lie I'd been trying not to inhale. My mother blinked first. "Oh," she said, smirking, "you came." "Really?" I said, and my voice surprised me with how level it sounded. "Then pack your things. You don't live here anymore." Silence. Not the stunned kind. No, the calculating kind, where everyone counts who's on their side. My dad stood halfway, puffing himself taller. Ava came in from the hall with Mia on her hip, confusion skating across her face like a cloud over the sun. I walked past them into the living room, reached under the console, and dragged out one of their big plastic totes, the kind that makes a hollow sound when it hits hardwood. It echoed. My mother followed, words pouring out, dramatic, ruining Thanksgiving, upsetting the baby. Her voice chasing me like a small, yapping dog that thinks it's a wolf. "You have 1 week," I said. That's me being generous. I didn't look at my dad when he chuckled. The sound was pure performance. "You're really going to charge your own parents out of their home?" he asked. "My home," I said, not loud, just certain. "And yes, 1 week." Ava's eyes kept moving. My hands, the tote, the doorway, Mia's sock slipping down her ankle. She wasn't saying much, but something in the set of her mouth told me she was adding things up. I left them to their whisper spiral of outrage and walked the house like I didn't already know every corner of it. The guest room they'd painted without asking. The rug they'd replaced because the old one was depressing. The framed photos of Mia that made my heart ache and my stomach twist because love shouldn't be a leash, and yet here it always seemed to be. The day after Thanksgiving, I woke to a text from my mother as if nothing had happened. "Glad you stopped by yesterday. Mia missed you. Hope you had some of the stuffing." I stared at the bubble, fascinated by the acrobatics required to pretend. Dad didn't text. He called twice and left a voicemail comprised mostly of deep sighs and a thesis about not letting emotions ruin the holiday. Which emotions, exactly? The ones where your daughter hears you dismantle her in her own kitchen? Or the ones where accountability interrupts dessert? Ava's text came around lunch, a small life raft of honesty on a choppy feed. "Can we talk when you're ready?" I told her I'd reach out soon. By Sunday, I could feel the atmosphere shift without even being there. My aunt posted a status about entitled people forgetting who sacrificed for them, and my mom dropped a heart emoji like a gavel. Right on cue, a Venmo request popped up from my dad, $280. Note, baby's daycare next week. I stared, forwarded it to Ava. Her reply was immediate. "That's not for me. Daycare's paid through December." They were using the baby as a narrative the way they used my house as a fact. I didn't decline the request. I didn't answer it either. I just let it sit there, a little museum exhibit of the story they were telling. By Tuesday, my patience had crystallized into policy. I walked into my house, didn't knock, and asked them to turn off the TV. My parents sat on the couch like sovereigns, and I sat in the chair across from them like a landlord because that's what I had always been. I just hadn't charged for it. "Here are the terms," I said. "If you want to stay, rent is $2,000 a month, due on the 1st. No delays, no excuses. You live in my house, you contribute to it." My mother's mouth fell open like I'd spoken another language. My dad laughed, delighted at his own disbelief. You're really going to charge your own parents rent? I'm charging 2 grown adults who mocked me in my kitchen, I said. First of the month. They lunged for the old scripts. We raised you. You should be grateful. We were just venting. But words slide off policy. That's the point of policy. I gave them the deadline and left before the scene could metastasize. 2 days later, the money hit my account. 2,000 even. I watched the notification on my phone like you watch the end of a storm from a window. You don't clap, you don't cheer, you take inventory. 10 minutes after it landed, I moved $1,500 to Ava. No note, just a transfer and the knowledge that sometimes justice is a quiet line item. It took her a few hours. Why? She texted. Because you're the only one who hasn't taken anything from me, I wrote back. That night she called from a Target parking lot, Mia's soft babble in the background. They're pressuring me, she said, voice small, then steady. Not outright, but it's there. They want me to talk you down. Like, because I'm a mom, I should understand the sacrifices, and you're just being dramatic, but... She exhaled hard enough that I imagined fog on the driver's side window. I feel like they're more comfortable using me than helping me. The sentence landed with the weight of a verdict and the mercy of a release. Do you want to leave? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Not fear, calculation. I don't know how, she said finally. My job is okay, but rent. We'll figure out the how later, I said. For now, I'm moving the money to you. Every rent payment they make goes to your exit. Quietly, no announcements, just progress. A beat, then, they're going to lose their minds. Probably, I said, but minds aren't my responsibility. Keys and boundaries are. After the money cleared, the group chat quieted in a way that wasn't peace. It was regrouping. My mother sent a long ribbon of sugar-sweet text about appreciating the lesson in boundaries, how she hoped this could be a turning point, and maybe I could talk to Ava woman to woman. I read it 3 times and saw only the outline of what she feared, not losing me, but losing the story. That week, I kept my phone face down and my head clear. Alex asked me twice if I wanted him to intervene, to drive me over, to stand there in the doorway like a witness. He's the kind of man who knows when to hold his tongue and when to be useful. I've got this, I told him, and he believed me. On Friday morning, I walked the rooms again. Sun through blinds, the chair dent where my dad always sits, the faint scuff on the baseboard where Mia's walker caught the corner. Love is everywhere, and so is harm. It's the proportions that decide your future. I fixed the baseboard. I left the chair where it was. I stood in the doorway and decided my voice would be quiet and my actions loud. 7 days after Thanksgiving, a new kind of stillness settled over the house. It wasn't calm. It was the silence you get right before someone tries one last trick, and in that silence, I realized the truth. I would feed myself for the rest of this story. If money is the language they speak, I can answer in contracts. If shame is the hook they throw, I can stop being a fish. I locked up, pocketed the key, and felt, for the first time in a long time, like the house knew my name again. I didn't sleep much that week. Boundaries have a way of keeping you awake, like fresh paint you're afraid to smudge. The Venmo request for baby's daycare stayed in my notifications like a sticky note I refused to remove. I left it there on purpose, a reminder that in this house, money had always been a story, and I was finally learning to read the margins. In the morning, Alex made coffee and pretended not to hover. He handed me a mug and leaned his hip against the counter. How are you doing with it? He asked. With what? The part where you charged your parents' rent. I stared at the steam like it could tell me who I was. I hate that I had to, I said, but I hate more that the alternative was living in a lie. He nodded. You're allowed to pick structure over chaos. Then softer. And it's okay that it hurts anyway. It did hurt. All of it. The memory of my mother's smirk, my dad's laugh, my aunt's chorus. I kept replaying the sound of forks pausing midair, as if my name had blown out the candles on a cake I hadn't asked for. I wanted to be fair. I also wanted to stop bleeding. At lunch, I opened my budgeting spreadsheet, the same one they mocked, the religion I practiced with my little daily checkboxes. I added a new column, parents, tenants. Fixed line item, $2,000, due on the 1st. New rule, 75% of their rent routes to Ava as silent equity for her exit. No announcements, no stickers, just math. I texted her, "You're going to get deposits from me. Use them how you want. Deposits, daycare, new tires, no explanation needed." She typed and deleted, then wrote, "No one's ever sent me money without attaching a leash." "Consider this scissors," I wrote. That evening, a message from my mother stretched long and sugary across my screen. "We've been thinking about everything, and we realize you just want what's best. We appreciate the lesson in boundaries. We hope this can be a turning point for our family. Ava's been a little distant. Maybe you can talk to her woman to woman." I read it 3 times and imagined the family group chat just off stage, the rehearsal notes scrawled in the margins. Say healing, say boundaries, say turning point, say Ava. I didn't answer. Silence isn't cruelty. Sometimes it's the only language manipulators can't translate. 2 days later, the transfer hit. 2,000 even. 10 minutes after it landed, I moved $1,500 to Ava and stared at the confirmation like it was the first good photograph of something real and alive. She called almost immediately, sitting in her car with Mia babbling in the back seat. "I feel guilty," she said, "and I feel relieved. And then I feel guilty for feeling relieved." "That's not guilt," I said. "That's your nervous system getting a taste of oxygen." She laughed once, a small surprise sound. "They asked me to talk you into being reasonable," she admitted. "They keep saying we're family and family fixes things." "Family fixes," I echoed. "Just not the same thing every time for the same people." I hesitated. "Do you want to leave?" Silence. Not fear. Calculation. "Yes," she said finally. "I don't know how, but yes." "Then we treat this like a plan, not a scandal," I said. "I'll route whatever they pay to you. We'll look at listings. We'll do it quietly." She blew out a breath. "They're going to lose their minds." "They'll call it betrayal," I said. "You can call it a move-in date." The next morning, I walked the house with a clipboard like an inspector, not because I needed to write anything down, but because the posture calmed me. My father was at the dining table in his usual seat, reading the news like a man auditioning for stability. My mother wiped an already clean counter, looking up only to catch my expression. I kept my voice neutral. "Rent due on the 1st, I said. A reminder. "We're aware," my dad said, cheerful in that brittle way. "We're grateful for your generosity." The word generosity slid around the room like oil. "This isn't generosity," I said. "It's a lease without the paper." "We're family, honey," my mother murmured. "Paper feels cold." "Then this is warmth," I said. Predictable warmth. In the afternoon, Ava sent me 3 apartment links. 2 were non-starters. Airless, dim, the kind of places that make you smaller inside them. The third had windows that faced east and a tiny balcony that would be perfect for a thrifted chair and a plant she'd forget to water. $800 a month. 10 minutes from her job. We labeled it Possibility in a shared note and added a list underneath. Deposit, daycare transition, secondhand crib, cheap dresser, curtains. That night, I put Mia to sleep on my couch while Ava showered, the soft toddler weight anchoring me to the moment. Alex watched from the doorway, a smile ghosting across his face. "You'd be a good mom," he said, not as pressure, just as a fact observed in a quiet room. "I want to be a good sister first," I said. He nodded. Same recipe. By Friday, the air in the house felt charged, like static that hadn't found a doorknob yet. My aunt posted another passive-aggressive sermon on social media. It got 5 likes and a heart from my mother. A cousin I barely talked to DM'd me. "You okay?" I wrote back, "I'm choosing oxygen." He replied with a thumbs up and a sentence that surprised me. "We've all seen it, for years." The words reached a part of me nothing else had. The quiet witness. The idea that we weren't crazy, we weren't alone, we were just first. On Saturday afternoon, Dad tried a new approach. He arrived at my door with a toolbox and a smile. "Thought I'd fix that back gate," he said. "It sticks." "Thanks," I said, meaning it. We stood in the yard while he jimmied the latch, the November sun falling in thin coins through the oak. For a moment, he was just a man solving a small problem with his hands. Then, as if he couldn't help himself, he said, "It'll feel better once you stop being stubborn." I looked at the gate, newly obedient. "Stubborn gets a lot of bad press," I said, "but sometimes it's just another word for boundary." He glanced at me and measured his next move. "We're not villains, Marin," he said, the name landing like a closing argument. "We're trying." I know, I answered. I'm also trying. The difference is, my trying isn't at your expense anymore. We stood there with the fence between us, both of us suddenly very interested in the freshly working latch. He packed up his tools without another word, and I watched him walk back inside, smaller than the shadow he threw. Sunday evening, I met Ava in the Target parking lot again, the neutral country where nobody owns the air. She wore the expression I'd started recognizing this month: tired, determined, done. If I take the apartment, I can move by next Friday, she said. Landlord said the unit's clean and ready. What do you need first? Deposit, she said, and help moving the crib mattress without a scene. I'll bring a car with rope, I said. You bring the courage you already have. She laughed. Mom's going to say I'm brainwashing Mia by leaving. Mom says a lot of things when the weather isn't to her liking, I said. We can't keep holding umbrellas over her head. She rubbed her thumb over the steering wheel, a new thought forming. You know what else? She said. I don't think they actually want me back. I think they want the story back. The one where I'm helpless and you're heartless and they're the glue. They'll keep telling it, I said. An audience will shrink. Uncle Tim commented on Mom's post today, she added, like tossing a pebble into a pond to see the rings. He said maybe if they helped me, instead of controlling me, I wouldn't need to leave. I blinked, surprised. We hadn't seen much of him in years, a quiet man who never stayed long at holidays. People are braver when truth walks into the room first, I said. Ava nodded like she'd been waiting to hear it. I'm applying tonight, she said. If I get it, I want to pack without telling them. I want to leave like a person, not a spectacle. Then we plan it like a heist, I said. Quiet shoes, soft boxes, one trip. We did plan it. We listed what could fit in one car without attracting commentary. We timed the load to their nap habit on Sundays. We mapped the route with the least chance of running into a neighbor who'd feel deputized to deliver a message. We even practiced the lines we'd use if we were caught at the door. Just dropping toys at my sister's. Just swapping some clothes. True enough to say without flinching. Incomplete enough to keep. When I got home, my phone buzzed. A new message from a number I didn't recognize. You don't have to keep proving you're good to people who only love you useful. No name, no return address. I stared at it until the words stopped swimming. Somewhere in this family, someone else was awake. At midnight, a car idled outside my house for a long minute, the engine a low animal sound in the dark. I stood behind the curtain and watched taillights glow like eyes, then dim, then disappear. No knock, no note, just the feeling of being measured. I locked the door, set my phone face down, and lay in bed counting my breath. 3 in, 4 out. The kind of counting that isn't about control so much as permission. Across the room, the clipboard with my new column, Parents, Tenants, leaned against the wall like proof that I could make a map through this, one square at a time. We were getting out. Not by fire, by design. The morning of the move came dressed as ordinary. Gray light, coffee brewing. Ava texted me a single word. Ready. No emojis, no punctuation, just a line that meant everything. We had planned it for days, the quiet hours between my parents' morning routines and their noon rituals. Ava would come while they were still half asleep, while the house was soft and slow. I parked 2 streets over, engine off, heart hammering. The plan was simple. Load what she needed, leave what she didn't, no dramatics, no confrontation, clean break. But nothing involving our family ever stayed clean for long. When I got to the house, the blinds were drawn. The same house that had once felt like a living thing now looked like a prop from someone else's life. Ava met me at the back door with her keys clutched in her fist. Mia was in her car seat, already drowsy, her tiny sock slipping off again, the same one from Thanksgiving. Some things never change. You sure about this? I whispered. Ava nodded. Her hair was tied back tight, her eyes clear. I didn't come this far to freeze, she said. It was such a simple sentence, but I felt it everywhere, in my chest, in my spine, like a switch turning. We moved fast. Boxes, toys, clothes, diapers, everything light enough to carry, everything she could live without explaining. She didn't take the framed photos, didn't touch the gifts, not even the jewelry my mother had borrowed and promised to return. Ava wanted no evidence that she'd existed under their roof. When we tied the crib mattress to the roof of my car, she exhaled like a diver breaking surface. Inside, my parents were still asleep. The TV remote lay on the armrest. the news murmuring at low volume, just like always. We left quietly, locking the door behind us. Not forever, just finally. At my apartment, we set up an air mattress for Ava and Mia in the guest room. The space was small but clean, safe. Mia toddled around with a plastic spoon, laughing at nothing. Ava sat on the floor with tea and whispered, "I can breathe here." It wasn't relief, it was disbelief disguised as calm. We ordered takeout. We didn't mention our parents. The silence between us was the sound of survival. Around 9 that night, my phone buzzed. First Dad, "Is Ava with you?" Then Mom, "You think this is funny? Stealing your own sister?" The calls started immediately after. 5, 6, 7 in a row. I silenced them all. Across the room, Ava's phone lit up too. 12 missed calls. A text from Mom. "You don't get to just leave with a child. You're being irrational." Ava turned her phone off. "They really think they own us," she said. I didn't reply. The TV flickered on mute. Mia asleep in the next room, her tiny hand peeking out from under the blanket. I thought of all the years I'd confused endurance with loyalty. Now I knew better. By morning, the story had already gone public. Mom's Facebook post was long, dramatic, and full of holes. Imagine doing everything for your children, only to have them turn around and betray you. The house is quieter now, but maybe that's a good thing. Less attitude, less ungratefulness. The comments were predictable. Kids these days, so sad to see families torn apart. And then a surprise. Uncle Tim. He wrote, maybe if you helped Ava instead of controlling her, she wouldn't have felt like leaving was her only option. The silence that followed was louder than the post itself. Mom didn't reply, but her followers did. Stay strong. Some people need to learn respect. Still, the damage was done. A crack had appeared in their version of the story. For the first time, the audience wasn't entirely clapping. A few hours later, I got a message request. From Uncle Tim. "I've been waiting years for one of you to stand up to them. I'm proud of you both. Ava's braver than most adults I know." I sat with the message open for a full minute, not because I didn't know how to respond, but because I'd forgotten what real validation sounded like when it wasn't bought or begged for. I typed back, "Thank you. We're trying." He replied, "You're not trying. You're healing. Big difference." That evening, Ava insisted on going back to the house one last time, just to get documents, birth certificate, lease copies, medical forms. I offered to go with her, but she shook her head. "I have to do this alone." She parked 2 houses down, walked through the side gate, and slipped inside through the back door. She told me later what happened next. Mom was on the phone, venting to someone. Didn't even look up at first. Ava heard her voice before she reached the hallway. "She thinks she's so independent now, like moving into Marin's place makes her grown. Give it a month, she'll come crawling back. And when she does, I'm not going to make it easy." Ava didn't respond. She just walked in, picked up the envelope with her documents, and turned toward the door. Mom finally noticed. "You're not even going to say hello?" she snapped. Ava stopped. "I'm not coming back," she said, calm as water. Then she walked out. No slamming, no crying, just truth closing the door behind her. 3 days later, Ava moved into her new apartment. 2 bedrooms, beige walls, tiny balcony with a view of the street, sunlight through thin curtains. I helped her carry boxes up 2 flights of stairs. Mia's laugh echoed down the hallway like the first sound in a new life. We hung one picture, Mia finger painting in my old kitchen, because Ava said it felt like proof that love survives geography. When I left, she texted me. "I didn't realize how badly I needed out until I left. I feel like I'm breathing for the first time." I told her I was proud. She replied, "You should be. You taught me how." Back at my house, the quiet wasn't peace, it was vacancy. My parents' voices still lived in the walls, echoes of old conversations about sacrifice and respect. They still sat in my living room like they owned the lease, but something had changed. Their words didn't stick anymore. The hooks they'd thrown for years found nothing to catch. When they looked at me, they saw the outline of the daughter they'd built stories about, but not the woman who'd finally stepped outside them. That Sunday, my mom texted Ava again. "Come by for dinner. We still have Mia's sippy cup here. Don't you think she'd like to see her grandparents?" Ava didn't reply. and she didn't need to. For once, silence was the loudest answer in the room. By the second week, the story had split into two versions, one told by them, one lived by us. In theirs, we were ungrateful, cruel, heartless. In ours, we were finally breathing. They called relatives, cousins, anyone who would listen. They cried about betrayal, about everything we'd done for those girls. But guilt doesn't hit the same when people start checking the math. It didn't take long before questions began surfacing. Wait, they weren't paying rent? Wait, Marin owns the house? Wait, they called her a loser in her own kitchen? It was slow, but the tide began to turn. A cousin messaged me privately. I used to think you were being dramatic. Now I think you were being patient. I read that one 3 times before replying. Patience is just endurance with better branding. When the next rent payment came through, it was late by 2 days. My dad texted, bank issue, we'll send it soon. I replied with a single period. Within the hour, $2,000 hit my account. 10 minutes later, I moved $1,800 to Ava. She called, whispering like we were still fugitives. You know they're going to lose it when they find out, right? Good, I said. They should lose something they never earned. Ava laughed. A real laugh, not the quiet, contained one she used to use at home. Then she said something that stuck. I don't think they actually want us back. I think they just want the story back. She was right. Our leaving didn't wound them because of absence. It wounded them because it ended the performance. The audience had started leaving the theater, and they didn't know how to play to empty seats. A few days later, Ava texted me a photo of Mia asleep on a little pink mattress. Under it, she wrote, "She didn't even wake up once last night. It's finally quiet." I saved the picture, because quiet, for us, wasn't just peace, it was proof. Meanwhile, the house felt different. Not haunted, just exposed. They still lived there, still acting like tenants who refused to acknowledge their landlord existed. My mom sent passive-aggressive texts about little fixes around the house that she wanted permission for. I didn't respond. My dad left voicemails, all sighs and partial apologies that circled the same drain. We just want things to go back to normal. But normal was the problem. Normal was a system where love came with receipts. Alex noticed the shift before I did. You seem lighter, he said one night while setting 2 plates on the table. I looked at him, almost confused. Do I? He nodded. You don't flinch when your phone buzzes anymore. I realized he was right. Silence had stopped feeling dangerous. That weekend, Ava came over. Mia toddled across my rug, giggling at the sound her little shoes made on the floor. Ava sat by the window, sunlight catching the edge of her face. I started classes, she said, smiling shyly. Bookkeeping. It's not glamorous, but it's something stable. That's huge, I said. She shrugged. I'm tired of surviving. I want to build. We talked about everything, about Mia, about her small apartment, about the way freedom still felt fragile. She admitted that sometimes she still woke up expecting to be scolded for breathing wrong. I told her that was trauma trying to trick her into comfort. We laughed, then fell into a comfortable silence. It felt like exhaling after years underwater. But the world outside our peace wasn't still. The calls began again, this time from relatives who were just checking in. They'd start with small talk, then lower their voices. You know, your parents are struggling. I said, they're welcome to sell the house if they can't handle rent. A pause. They said you forced them into this. No, I said calmly. They forced me to choose between being a daughter and being a person. I chose person. By mid-month, the sympathy had shifted. People were starting to see the cracks. One aunt offered Ava a used crib and a high chair. A cousin dropped off a bag of baby clothes. For the first time, the help wasn't being filtered through guilt. It was just help. My parents hated it. They called Ava, scolding her for making us look bad. My dad even sent her a screenshot of a group chat where relatives were asking what happened, like proof she'd ruined the family's reputation. Ava told me later, laughing, they don't even realize they're confessing out loud. That week, she said something that stopped me cold. I think they're more afraid of quiet than of losing us. Because quiet means they have to listen to themselves. She was right again. When the next rent payment came, it arrived on time. No note, no apology, just numbers. I stared at the transfer confirmation and realized the money had stopped feeling tainted. It wasn't theirs anymore. It was a toll, payment for peace. At dinner that night, Alex asked, "Do you think they'll ever stop trying to spin it?" I thought about it. "They'll stop when there's no one left to listen," I said. And maybe that was the truest freedom of all, knowing that the only story that still mattered was the one we were writing for ourselves. The next morning, I got a short message from Ava. It said, "I found another apartment. Brighter kitchen, little patio, $800. I think I can handle it." Then she added, "This time, I don't need help with the deposit. I want Mia to grow up saying, 'My mom did it herself.'" I stared at the message for a long time. Pride and grief tangled somewhere deep in my chest. Pride because she was rising. Grief because it took this much breaking to find balance. By the end of the month, Ava had moved again. I helped her carry a bookcase up 2 flights of stairs. When we finished, she stood in the middle of her new living room, breathing hard but smiling. "I think I'm done apologizing for how I left," she said. "Good," I said. "We didn't burn a bridge, we just stopped holding it up." She laughed softly, the sound pure and unguarded. And for the first time, I believed it. We weren't escaping anymore. We were rebuilding. 3 months later, the house finally stopped echoing with ghosts. My parents still lived there, technically. They still sent the rent on the first of every month, a clean $2,000 transfer with no message, no note, no apology. It landed in my account like a bill they hated paying but couldn't avoid. Sometimes I'd see the notification flash on my phone while making breakfast, and it felt surreal, like watching a movie where the villain keeps pretending the credits haven't rolled yet. Ava, meanwhile, was thriving. Her new apartment had pale yellow walls and a small patio lined with succulents that she'd somehow managed to keep alive. She sent me pictures every few days, Mia painting with her hands, a shelf she'd built herself, a coffee mug she'd thrifted for 50 cents that said, "Good things take time." The caption under one photo read, "She slept through the night again. I finally do too." I started visiting every Sunday. Sometimes Alex came, sometimes he didn't. Ava would cook something simple, pasta or rice and beans, and we'd sit by the open window while Mia played with crayons on the floor. There was laughter again. Not the kind that hides sharpness behind it, but real laughter. The kind that feels like healing. One Sunday, as we watched Mia stack blocks, Ava said, "Do you ever think about them?" I didn't have to ask who. "Sometimes," I admitted, "mostly when the rent hits my account." She smiled, bittersweet. "I think they tell people we abandoned them." "They can tell whatever story they need to," I said. "The truth doesn't require witnesses anymore." She nodded, then leaned back in her chair. "You know what's strange? I don't even hate them. I just don't need them." "That's growth," I said. "Peace isn't about revenge, it's about indifference." Back at my house, I'd started rearranging things. I changed the locks, painted the living room a soft blue, hung curtains that let in more light. It was still the same house, but it didn't carry the same weight anymore. Every nail, every brush stroke felt like reclaiming something invisible. Alex noticed. He said the place finally felt like me. He was right. For the first time, it did. I didn't hear much from my parents after that. Occasionally, a relative would reach out with secondhand updates. Dad sold his truck. Mom stopped hosting family dinners. Someone mentioned they were arguing more, mostly about money. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel sorry either. You can't mourn a cycle you've already escaped. Once, I got a text from my mother after months of silence. "We found one of Mia's shoes here. Maybe we can meet halfway? We're still family." I read it twice, then deleted it. Not out of spite, out of understanding. You can't reason with someone who confuses proximity with love. A week later, Ava texted me. They reached out again. I didn't reply. "Good," I wrote. "You don't have to reopen every wound just because someone else forgot where they cut you." The following month, she invited me to her community college ceremony. Nothing big, just a certificate program completion, but she was glowing. Afterward, we stood outside the building while Mia ran circles around our legs. "You did this," I told her. She shook her head. "No, we did this. You gave me the chance. I just took it." I smiled. That's what freedom is, taking the chance you weren't supposed to have. That night, as I drove home, I passed the house, the old one, the one they still lived in. The porch light was on, like always, but the windows were dark. For years, I used to slow down, wondering if they were watching from behind the curtains, waiting for me to look back. This time I didn't slow. I didn't even glance. I just drove past, the way you pass an old exit you used to take before you learned the road keeps going. Back home, Alex was waiting on the porch. He handed me a mug of tea and said, "You look done." "I am," I said. Then, after a pause, "But not finished. There's a difference." He smiled. "Finished means over. Done means free." I nodded. The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't need to prove anything. Inside, the house felt lighter. No ghosts, no weight, just space. Later, before bed, I checked my phone. The rent had come in again. I transferred half to Ava, out of habit, out of love, maybe both. Then I closed the banking app and set the phone down. The final thought before I slept was simple. We hadn't destroyed the family. We'd just stopped being its fuel. And for the first time in my life, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was earned.